I was driving to surprise Mark with dinner when the SUV ran the red light and changed everything. 2 days unconscious, 3 broken ribs, and when I finally called my husband from the hospital bed, he said I was pathetic and hung up. By the time his new fiancée, Sophia, walked into my room on his arm, flaunting their engagement while I lay there broken, I'd already made my decision. They could mock me, dismiss me, parade their new life in front of me. None of it mattered. Because in my bedside drawer, next to the morphine drip instructions and insurance forms, sat a lottery ticket worth $150 million that Mark knew nothing about. And I planned to keep it that way. The morning light filtered through our bedroom curtains, painting golden stripes across the empty space where Mark should have been sleeping. I traced my fingers along the cool sheets, already knowing what excuse would come later. Another business meeting. Another client dinner. Another night where I'd eat reheated leftovers alone while watching Netflix. "Grace, you're going to be late," I muttered to myself, rolling out of bed and stumbling toward the shower. My reflection caught me off guard sometimes. 32 years old, dark circles under hazel eyes that used to sparkle more, brown hair that needed a trim I couldn't quite afford this month. Customer service supervisor at a tech company sounds impressive until you realize it means handling angry calls all day while making barely enough to cover the mortgage on our modest 2-bedroom house in Riverside Heights. The kitchen still smelled faintly of last night's attempt at chicken parmesan. Mark had taken 3 bites before pushing his plate away. "It's a bit dry, don't you think?" he'd said, scrolling through his phone. "Maybe follow the recipe next time instead of experimenting." I'd wanted to tell him that following recipes required having all the ingredients, which required money we didn't have after his latest investment opportunity fell through. But arguing with Mark had become pointless. He'd just turn it around, make it about my lack of faith in his vision, my inability to see the bigger picture. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel, my best friend since college. "Coffee after work? You looked tired yesterday. Everything okay?" I typed back quickly. "Can't today. Covering Jennifer's shift. Maybe Friday?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Rachel knew better than to push, but I could feel her concern through the screen. She'd been dropping hints lately, careful observations about how Mark talked to me at dinner parties, how he always seemed to have somewhere else to be when I needed him. At work, the hours blurred together. Angry customer after angry customer, each convinced their problem was the most important crisis in the universe. During my lunch break, I sat in my car and ate a granola bar, watching other people walk by with their Starbucks cups and designer bags. When had I become invisible? When had my dreams shrunk to just making it through another day? My phone rang. Unknown number, but local area code. "Hello. Is this Grace Thompson?" The voice was professional, crisp. "Yes, who's calling?" "Mrs. Thompson, my name is Richard Hartley from Hartley and Associates Law Firm. I'm calling regarding a lottery entry you submitted approximately 4 months ago." My heart skipped. I vaguely remembered entering some promotional drawing at the grocery store. They'd been pushing it hard. Every $50 spent got you an entry. I'd forgotten all about it. "I'm pleased to inform you that you are the sole winner of our special promotional jackpot." "Oh, that's nice," I said, assuming it would be a few $1,000s at most. What did I win? $150 million. The granola bar fell from my hand. "I'm sorry, what?" $150 million, Mrs. Thompson. Before taxes, of course. We'll need to arrange a meeting to verify your identity and begin the claims process. My hand shook so violently, I nearly dropped the phone. "This is real? This isn't some scam?" Mr. Hartley chuckled. "Very real, Mrs. Thompson. I understand your shock. Take your time. We'll need to meet within the next few days to start the paperwork. Can we schedule something?" The rest of the conversation was a blur. Verification codes, appointment times, warnings about keeping it confidential until the official announcement. When I hung up, I sat in complete silence for 5 minutes, then burst into tears. Happy tears. Terrified tears. Disbelieving tears. Mark. I had to tell Mark. No, I had to surprise him. This would change everything. He'd been so stressed about money, so frustrated with our situation. This would fix it all. We could finally be happy again, like we were in the beginning when he used to bring me flowers just because it was Tuesday, when he'd dance with me in the kitchen while dinner cooked. I drove home early, telling my supervisor I felt sick. Not exactly a lie, my stomach was doing somersaults. At the grocery store, I maxed out my credit card buying steaks, wine, Mark's favorite dessert. I set the dining room table with our wedding china, the stuff we never used. I even found the candles from our 5th anniversary tucked in a drawer. By 7 o'clock, everything was perfect. The house smelled amazing. I'd changed into the blue dress Mark once said made my eyes look like the ocean. I'd practiced how I'd tell him a dozen times in the mirror. My phone buzzed. Mark. Hey, I'm going to be late. Morrison wants to go over the quarterly projections again. How late? I try to keep the disappointment out of my voice. I don't know, Grace. Late. Why do you always need exact times for everything? I made dinner. Your favorite. A pause. Just save me a plate. I'll heat it up when I get home. Mark, I have something important to tell you. Something amazing. Can it wait? I'm literally walking into this meeting. Don't be dramatic, Grace. Whatever it is, it'll keep. The line went dead. I sat at the perfectly set table for an hour, watching the candles burn down. The food grew cold. The wine remained unopened. At 9 o'clock, I blew out the candles and started putting everything away. But the excitement wouldn't die. I couldn't wait. I had to tell him in person, had to see his face when he realized our struggles were over. I knew where Morrison's office was, downtown, in the Fletcher building. Mark had pointed it out once, complaining about the parking. If their meeting was running this late, maybe I could catch them as they were leaving. We could go somewhere, have a drink, and I could tell him then. The drive downtown took 20 minutes. The Fletcher building's parking garage was nearly empty. I pulled in and took the elevator to Morrison's floor, my heart racing with anticipation. But the office suite was dark. The reception area empty. Confused, I walked back to my car. Maybe they'd gone to dinner to discuss business. Mark did that sometimes. I pulled out of the garage, heading toward home, when I realized I'd taken a wrong turn. The street was unfamiliar, narrow, lined with warehouses. I was looking for a place to turn around when I saw them. The SUV came out of nowhere, running the red light at what must have been 60 miles per hour. I had just enough time to see the driver's face, young, panicked, before the world exploded into chaos. The impact threw me sideways. Glass showered over me like deadly rain. The airbag hit my face with the force of a prizefighter's punch. I heard the sickening crunch of metal, felt my body slam against the door, then nothing but ringing in my ears and the taste of copper in my mouth. Through the haze, I heard voices. Someone yelling about calling 911. Another person saying something about a hit and run. I tried to speak, to tell them about Mark, about the money, about the surprise that would never be, but darkness was creeping in from the edges of my vision. The last thing I remembered was the sound of sirens and someone saying, "Stay with us, ma'am. Help is coming." The first thing I noticed was the beeping. Steady, rhythmic, annoying. Then came the pain, a full body ache that made me want to sink back into unconsciousness. My eyes felt weighted with lead, but I forced them open. Hospital ceiling. White tiles, fluorescent lights that made everything look harsh and clinical. I tried to turn my head and gasped at the sharp pain that shot down my neck. "Easy there, honey." A nurse appeared in my peripheral vision, her face kind but tired. "You're in Riverside, General. You've been unconscious for almost 2 days. Do you remember what happened?" "Accident," I croaked, my throat feeling like sandpaper. "The SUV." "That's right. You're lucky to be alive. Multiple contusions, 3 broken ribs, a concussion, and a fractured left ankle. But you're going to be okay." "My husband, Mark Thompson. Did anyone call him?" The nurse's expression shifted slightly. "We've been trying to reach your emergency contact. No response yet, but don't worry. Sometimes these things take time." 2 days. Mark hadn't answered for 2 days? Even if he was angry about me interrupting his meeting, surely the hospital calling would have gotten his attention. "Could you try again? Please?" She nodded and left. 20 minutes later, she returned with the phone. I have him on the line. I took the phone with trembling fingers. Mark. Grace. His voice was flat, annoyed. What is it? I'm in the hospital. There was an accident. A hit-and-run driver.
Jesus Christ, Grace.
I can't deal with this right now. The words hit harder than the SUV had. What? Mark, I'm hurt. I've been unconscious for 2 days. And what am I supposed to do about it? I'm in the middle of something important. I need you here. Please. And I still have that news to tell you. I don't have time for this, Grace. And I certainly don't have money for medical bills because you can't even cross the street safely. Figure it out yourself. The line went dead. I stared at the phone in disbelief. The nurse gently took it from my frozen fingers, her face carefully neutral. Men sometimes react strangely to stress, she said quietly. He'll come around. But he didn't. Days blurred together. Physical therapy sessions that left me crying from pain. Meals I couldn't taste. Nights staring at the ceiling, replaying that phone call. The lottery ticket information was in my purse, which had been recovered from my car and sat in the bedside drawer. $150 million, and my husband couldn't even be bothered to visit. On day 5, Rachel burst through the door, her face a mask of horror. Grace. Oh my God, I just got back from my work trip. I saw the news report about the accident. Why didn't Mark call me? I couldn't meet her eyes. He's been busy. Busy? You're in the hospital. Rachel, please. Not now. She sat on the edge of my bed, taking my hand. For a moment, we just sat in silence. Then she pulled out her phone. I need to show you something. I'm sorry, but you need to see this. The Instagram post was from 3 days ago. Mark at Romano's, the expensive Italian place we could never afford. His arm around a woman, young, maybe 25, with sleek black hair and a red dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary. The caption read, "Celebrating our engagement with my beautiful Sophia. Sometimes you have to clear out the old to make room for the new. #blessed, #new beginnings." The date stamp showed it was posted 3 days after my accident. That's impossible, I whispered. We're still married. Rachel swiped to another photo. Mark and Sophia at a jewelry store. Another at a beach. Another at what looked like an apartment viewing. All posted in the last week, while I'd been lying here broken and alone. Grace, there's more. People are commenting. Apparently, he's been telling everyone you two separated months ago. That you were getting divorced. That you were the one who left. The room spun. But that's not true. None of that is true. I know, honey. I know. He can't be engaged. We're still married. That's bigamy. Rachel bit her lip. Unless he's just calling her his fiancée while planning to divorce you. Grace, has he filed any papers? I shook my head, then winced at the pain. Nothing. We were fine. I mean, not fine, but we were married. I was about to tell him. I stopped. The lottery. Should I tell Rachel? Something held me back. If Mark found out about the money now, he'd suddenly reappear, all apologies and explanations. I needed to know the truth about what he'd become, without the money clouding everything. Tell him what? Rachel asked. Nothing. It doesn't matter now. She stayed for hours, holding my hand while I processed the betrayal. After she left, I asked the nurse to try calling Mark again. This time, a woman answered. Mark's phone, she said, her voice young and bright. This is Grace Thompson. I need to speak to my husband. A pause. Oh. The ex Mark said you might call. He's asked me to tell you to communicate only through lawyers from now on. He'll be filing the divorce papers this week. We're not divorced. We're not even separated. I'm in the hospital. Look, lady, I don't know what delusions you're operating under, but Mark's with me now. He's been with me for months. Let it go. The line went dead. I spent that night staring at the lottery paperwork. $150 million. Enough to buy anything, go anywhere, be anyone. And my husband of 8 years was leaving me for a woman he'd apparently been seeing behind my back, telling people I was already gone while I lay here broken and alone. The next morning, a delivery arrived. A small bouquet of white roses with a card. My hands shook as I opened it. We'll talk soon.
M.
Mark? Or someone else? The handwriting was unfamiliar, printed carefully in block letters. The roses were expensive, not from a grocery store. It didn't seem like Mark's style, but then again, I apparently didn't know Mark at all anymore. I tucked the card into the drawer with the lottery papers. Whatever game was being played, I'd need to be smarter this time. No more trusting blindly. No more assuming love meant loyalty. The nurse came in for my afternoon medications. You're healing well, she said. Another week or two, and you'll be ready for outpatient therapy. Good, I said, managing a small smile. I have some things to take care of. She patted my hand. That's the spirit. You know, I've seen a lot of people come through here. The ones who heal best are the ones who find something to fight for. After she left, I pulled out the lottery papers again. $150 million. Mark thought he was leaving me with nothing. He had no idea that he was the one walking away from everything. 2 weeks had passed since the roses arrived. 2 weeks of physical therapy, of learning to walk with crutches, of dodging questions from well-meaning nurses about why my husband never visited. I'd gotten good at the polite smile, the he travels for work, excuse that fooled no one. I was practicing walking down the hallway when Nancy, my favorite day nurse, appeared with an odd expression. Grace, you have visitors. Visitors? Plural? Rachel was in Seattle for a conference, and my parents were still on their anniversary cruise in Europe. Who? Your husband is here. With someone. My blood turned to ice. I gripped my crutches tighter. I don't want to see him. Nancy touched my arm gently. I can send them away if you want. But, honey, sometimes facing things head-on gives us the closure we need. I wanted to be weak. I wanted to hide in my room and pretend Mark didn't exist. But something in me, maybe the same stubborn streak that had gotten me through these hellish weeks, made me square my shoulders. Fine. Give me 5 minutes to get back to my room. I made it back, settling myself in the chair by the window rather than the bed. I wouldn't face him lying down. I ran my fingers through my hair, straightened my hospital gown. It was ridiculous, caring how I looked for a man who'd abandoned me, but I couldn't help it. The door opened, and Mark walked in like he owned the place. 3 weeks since I'd seen him, and he looked different. New haircut, expensive suit I'd never seen before, a watch that definitely wasn't the Timex I'd bought him for Christmas. Behind him was Sophia, even more stunning in person than in the photos. Designer jeans, silk blouse, diamonds in her ears that caught the light. Grace, Mark said, his tone like he was greeting a casual acquaintance. You're looking like I was hit by a car? I kept my voice steady, calm. Yes, that tends to happen when an SUV runs you down. He had the audacity to laugh. Still got that sharp tongue, I see. This is Sophia, my fiancée. Fiancé. So he was keeping up the lie. Sophia extended her hand, perfectly manicured nails, painted deep red. I didn't take it. We're still married, Mark, I said quietly. You can't have a fiancé when you have a wife. Details, he waved dismissively. The papers will be filed soon. I've been meaning to deal with it, but I've been busy. You know how it is. Or actually you don't. You've never really understood the demands of real business. Real business? You mean like the Morrison meeting that night? The one that didn't actually happen because the office was dark when I drove by. A flicker of something crossed his face, but he recovered quickly. Checking up on me? That's pathetic, even for you, Grace. No wonder you got yourself into an accident. Got myself into. I started, but Sophia interrupted. The apartment we looked at has the most amazing view, she said to Mark, as if I wasn't there. The one with the marble countertops. The penthouse, Mark nodded, smiling at her with more warmth than he'd shown me in years. Already put down the deposit. With what money? I asked. Last I checked, we could barely make our mortgage payment. Mark's smile turned cruel. Things change when you remove dead weight from your life. Sophia's family has connections. Real money. Not like your pathetic attempts at budgeting with grocery store coupons. You looked so fragile, Sophia added, her voice sugary sweet but her eyes cold. Mark told me you'd really let yourself go these last few years.
Stress eating, he said.
Though I guess the accident helped with that. You look like you've lost weight. They were enjoying this. They'd come here specifically to hurt me, to show off their new life while I sat here broken. But something else was happening too. Sophia kept looking at me, really looking, and her perfectly composed expression would flicker with something I couldn't quite read. You know what's really pathetic? Mark continued, warming to his theme. You probably thought I'd come running when you got hurt, that I'd suddenly realize how much I loved you, like some movie. But real life doesn't work that way, Grace. In real life, when someone's dragging you down, you cut them loose. Is that what you told Sophia about me? That I was dragging you down? He told me you were emotionally unstable, Sophia said, but her voice had lost some of its edge. She was staring at me intently now, her brow furrowed. That you'd had a breakdown. That you'd left months ago to find yourself, or some nonsense. And you believed him? I met her gaze directly. You didn't think to question why there was no separation agreement?
No divorce filing?
Why all my things were still in her house? Sophia's confidence wavered slightly. She turned to Mark. You said she moved out. She was practically gone anyway, Mark said smoothly. Working all the time, never home. What's the difference? I laughed, actually laughed, and both of them looked startled. The difference is that I was working extra shifts to pay for your failed business ventures, your investment opportunities, your can't-miss schemes that always missed. See, Mark turned to Sophia. Bitter. Negative.
No visión.
But Sophia wasn't looking at him anymore. She'd moved closer to me, her eyes searching my face with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. Where did you grow up? She asked suddenly. The question was so unexpected that I answered without thinking. Willow Creek. Why? The color drained from Sophia's face. She took another step closer, and I could see her hands were trembling. Willow Creek. The shelter district. Near there, yes. But I don't see. Oh my God, Sophia whispered, and her designer purse slipped from her fingers, hitting the floor with a heavy thud. Her voice rose, shaky and disbelieving. Oh my God, you're... Sophia? Mark stepped forward, confused and irritated. What's wrong with you? But Sophia wasn't listening to him. She was staring at me like she'd seen a ghost, her perfectly made-up face crumbling into something raw and vulnerable. You're the one, she breathed. The woman who... The door burst open. Nancy rushed in with a clipboard, her face apologetic but firm. Mrs. Thompson, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but we need you to sign these surgical consent forms immediately. There's been a change in your schedule. We need to move your procedure up. What procedure? Mark demanded, as if he had any right to know. Nancy gave him a cool look. I'm sorry, but due to HIPAA regulations, I can only discuss medical information with the patient unless she authorizes otherwise.
She turned to me.
Mrs. Thompson, we really need these signatures now. Sophia stood frozen, her mouth still open, the sentence unfinished. Mark grabbed her arm. Come on, we're leaving. This was a waste of time anyway. But Sophia resisted, her eyes never leaving mine. Wait, I need to. Now, Sophia. Mark's voice had an edge I recognized, the one that used to make me stop arguing and comply. As he practically dragged her toward the door, Sophia twisted back to look at me one more time. The expression on her face was no longer cold or superior. It was something else entirely, recognition, maybe even gratitude mixed with horror. They were gone before I could process what had just happened. Nancy helped me with the forms, just routine paperwork, nothing urgent, and I suspected she'd intervened on purpose. You okay, honey? She asked gently. I don't know, I admitted. Something just happened, but I'm not sure what. After she left, I sat in the silence, trying to make sense of Sophia's reaction. Willow Creek, the shelter district. She'd asked about it like it meant something to her. And that look of recognition, not like she'd seen my picture somewhere, but like she actually knew me. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Alone.
Please. S.
Sophia. Somehow, she'd gotten my number. I stared at the message for a long time, then deleted it. Whatever game she and Mark were playing, I wanted no part of it. But as I lay in bed that night, I couldn't shake the image of her face in that moment before Nancy interrupted. She'd been about to say something that clearly terrified her, something that had shattered her composure completely. Who was Sophia, really? And what did she know about me that I didn't remember? The lottery paper sat heavy in my bedside drawer, my secret still safe. But now there was another secret in play, one I didn't understand yet. One that had made Mark's confident new fiancé look at me with something that almost looked like awe or guilt. The text from Sophia haunted me for 3 days before she showed up again. This time, she came alone. I was in the physical therapy room, gritting my teeth through leg exercises when Nancy appeared. That young woman is back. The one who was here with your husband. She says it's important. My first instinct was to refuse, but curiosity won. Send her to my room. I'll be there in 10 minutes. When I crutched my way back, Sophia was sitting in the visitor's chair, and she looked nothing like the polished woman who'd stood beside Mark 3 days ago. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. No designer clothes, just jeans and a plain sweater. No jewelry except small silver studs in her ears. She looked younger this way, vulnerable even. "Thank you for seeing me," she said quietly. "I know I don't deserve it after how I acted. Why are you here?" She twisted her hands in her lap. "I need to tell you something. About that day you asked about Willow Creek. But first, I need to know, did you ever volunteer at the women's shelter there? About 10 years ago." My breath caught. I had volunteered there right after college. Every weekend for almost 2 years, until Mark convinced me it was too dangerous, too much time away from him.
Yes.
Why? Sophia's eyes filled with tears. I knew it. The moment I really looked at you, I knew it, but I couldn't believe it. You don't remember me, do you? I studied her face, trying to place her. Should I? February, 10 years ago. The worst snowstorm the city had seen in decades. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I was 17, had been on the streets for 3 months after running away from my uncle's house. I was trying to get into the shelter, but they were full. You were leaving your volunteer shift. Something flickered in my memory. A teenage girl, painfully thin, shivering in a ripped jacket outside the shelter doors. You saw me, Sophia continued. You could have just walked past like everyone else did. But you didn't. You took me to your car, gave me the lunch you'd packed for yourself. Then you drove to Target and bought me a winter coat, gloves, boots, everything. With your own money. The memory crystallized. I remembered her now, those same dark eyes, but hollow with hunger and fear. I'd been so worried about her. You got me a hotel room for a week, Sophia said, tears streaming down her face now. Paid for yourself. Gave me $200 cash and your phone number. Told me that if I needed anything at all, to call you. You never called, I said softly. I was too proud, too ashamed. But I kept your number for years. You saved my life that week. I got a job at a diner, got back on my feet. Eventually got my GED, then community college. She laughed bitterly. I even started a blog about second chances, about the kindness of strangers. You were always the inspiration, though I never named you. I sat down heavily on my bed, trying to process this. And now you're engaged to my husband. The words hung between us like an accusation. Sophia buried her face in her hands. I didn't know, she sobbed. I swear to God, Grace, I didn't know. He told me his ex-wife was named Emma. He said she'd left him, that she was cruel and cold. He said she'd cleaned out their bank accounts and disappeared. I only found out your real name when we came here. Emma was his mother's name, I said numbly. He always hated her. When I saw you lying there, when I realized who you were, God, I wanted to die. The woman who saved my life, and I'm here with her husband, throwing our relationship in her face, while she's lying in a hospital bed. But you didn't say anything. You let him continue. Sophia looked up, mascara streaking her cheeks. I was in shock. And Mark, he's different than he was in the beginning. He was so charming, so attentive. He made me feel special. But lately he's showing his true colors? She nodded. The cruelty. The little comments designed to hurt. The way he talks about money constantly. He's been pushing me to invest my inheritance from my mother. She died 2 years ago, left me about $300,000. Mark has all these opportunities he wants me to fund. Let me guess, can't miss investments that require immediate cash? You know about those? I laughed bitterly. I funded enough of them. That's why I was working extra shifts. To pay off the debts from his last 3 brilliant ideas. Sophia stood up, pacing to the window. He told me you were bad with money, that you couldn't see his vision. His vision usually involved get-rich-quick schemes that were heavy on the quick and light on the rich. She turned back to me. Grace, I need to tell you something else. The night of your accident, Mark was with me. We were at my apartment. He got a call from the hospital, but he told them wrong number and hung up. I asked who it was, and he said telemarketers. The betrayal hit fresh, even though I'd suspected as much. He knew I was here and lied to you about it. For 3 days. Then when the hospital kept calling, he finally told me his ex-wife had gotten herself into trouble. Made it sound like you were probably drunk driving or something. I'm so sorry, Grace. For all of it. I wanted to hate her. It would have been easier. But looking at her, this woman who'd once been that desperate teenager I'd tried to help, I couldn't manage it. There's something else, Sophia said, reaching into her purse. She pulled out a small recording device. After we left here last time, Mark was furious about my reaction. He went on this rant in the car about you, about how pathetic you were, how he'd wasted the best years of his life on you. How the accident was the best thing that could have happened because now he could file for divorce without looking like the bad guy. You recorded him? I've been recording him for the last week. Ever since I started noticing inconsistencies in his stories. Grace, he's not just leaving you. He's planning to claim abandonment, say you left months ago. He's got some lawyer friend who's going to backdate documents. He wants to take the house, everything. The room spun slightly. But that's fraud. He doesn't care. He says you won't fight it because you can't afford a lawyer. He actually laughed about it. I thought about the lottery ticket in my drawer. $150 million could buy a lot of lawyers. But I kept my mouth shut. Sophia, why are you telling me this? She sat back down, meeting my eyes directly. Because you saved me once. Because I owe you everything. And because... She took a shaky breath. Because I finally understand what Mark really is. He's using me for my money, just like he used to for yours. The only difference is I have more of it. So leave him. I'm going to. But first, I want to help you nail him. Make sure he can't do this to anyone else. She held up the recorder. I have enough here to bury him in court. His business partners would run if they heard how he really talks about them. His reputation would be destroyed. Why would you do that? You could just walk away. Sophia stood up, and for a moment, I saw the strength that had helped her survive the streets at 17. Because 10 years ago, a stranger showed me that there were still good people in the world. That woman deserved better than Mark Thompson then, and she deserves justice now. She pulled out a business card. This is my real number. Not the phone Mark monitors. When you're ready to move forward, call me. We'll handle this together. After she left, I sat in the quiet of my room, processing everything. The teenager I'd helped a decade ago was back, ready to help me destroy the man who'd betrayed us both. It felt like something out of a movie. I pulled out the lottery papers and looked at them again. Soon, very soon, I'd claim my winnings. But first, Mark needed to show his true colors completely, without any knowledge of the money. I wanted him to reveal exactly who he was when he thought I had nothing. My phone buzzed. Rachel, flying back early.
We need to talk.
Found out some interesting things about Mark's business trips. You're not going to believe this. I smiled grimly. It seemed everyone was discovering what I'd been too blind to see for years. But that was about to change. The woman Mark had dismissed as pathetic was about to become his worst nightmare. Rachel arrived the next morning with a thick folder and a grim expression. I hired a private investigator, she said without preamble. I know you didn't ask me to, but after seeing those photos of Mark with that woman, I had to know what else he was hiding. Rachel, you didn't have to. Yes, I did. You're my best friend, and that bastard has been playing you for years. Look at this. She spread photos across my bed. Mark at various hotels, always with different women. Date stamps going back 2 years. He's been cheating the entire time, Rachel said. The business trips? Half of them were fake. He'd drive to the next town over, spend the weekend with whoever his current fling was. I picked up one photo, my hand surprisingly steady. Mark with a blonde woman at a restaurant I recognized, the place he'd taken me for our anniversary last year. He'd said he had to cancel our reservation because of work. There's more, Rachel continued. His business? It's built on loans he took out using your credit information. Grace, you're on the hook for almost $200,000. The room tilted.
What?
He forged your signature. The investigator found at least 3 loans. The banks are going to come after you for the money. I thought I'd hit rock bottom, but apparently there was further to fall. Then I remembered the lottery ticket. The money would cover the debts, but Mark had no idea. Rachel, I need to tell you something. But you have to promise to keep it secret for now. She leaned forward. Anything. I pulled out the lottery papers and handed them to her. She read them once, twice, 3 times. Then she let out a shriek that probably woke up the entire floor. $150 million? Grace, oh my God.
Sure. No one can know yet.
Especially not Mark. But this changes everything. You can destroy him. That's the plan. But I need him to think I'm broke first. I want him to show exactly who he is when he thinks I have nothing. Rachel's eyes gleamed with something almost vengeful. You want to set him up. Sophia's going to help. Sophia? The fiancé. I explained everything, the connection from years ago, her recording Mark, her offer to help. Rachel listened with increasing amazement. This is insane. It's like the universe is conspiring to give you justice. Maybe it is. That afternoon, Sophia arrived with her laptop and more recordings. Rachel stayed, and the 3 of us formed the strangest alliance I could have imagined. The wife, the best friend, and the other woman, united against the man who'd wronged us all. I've got him admitting to the forged loans, Sophia said, playing a recording. Mark's voice filled the room, bragging about how easy it was to fake my signature, how stupid banks were, how I'd never figure it out. And here's him talking about hiding assets, she continued. Another recording, Mark explaining how he'd been moving money to offshore accounts for months, preparing for the divorce. We need to get him on record being even more explicit, Rachel said. Something that would not only destroy him in divorce court but criminally. I have an idea, I said slowly. Sophia, would you be willing to wear a wire? Tell him I contacted you, that I'm desperate for money for medical bills, that I'm willing to sign over the house if he pays my hospital costs. Sophia nodded. He'll jump at that. He's been wanting the house, plans to flip it for profit. But here's the key, I continued. Tell him I mentioned something about a big financial windfall coming. Be vague, but make him curious. See if he suddenly wants to delay the divorce. Rachel grinned. Oh, that's devious. I love it. We spent the next 2 hours planning every detail. Sophia would approach Mark that evening, wearing a recording device Rachel had somehow procured. She'd plant the seeds about my supposed windfall, then gauge his reaction. What about after? Sophia asked. When he finds out about the lottery? By then, we'll have everything we need to destroy him in court, I said. The recordings, the evidence of fraud, the hidden assets. He'll be lucky to walk away with the clothes on his back. Sophia left to prepare for her performance. Rachel stayed with me, holding my hand. You know what the best part is? She said. He thinks he's so smart. Thinks he's gotten away with everything. Pride goeth before a fall, I quoted. More like pride goeth before a $150 million catastrophe. That evening, my phone buzzed with texts from Sophia. He bought it completely. Got him talking about the loans. He admitted to planning the abandonment story. You should see his face about the windfall hint. He's already talking about reconciliation. 2 hours later, she called. Grace, you need to hear this. She played the recording over the phone. Mark's voice, clear as day. If she's got money coming, maybe I should slow down the divorce. String her along a bit. She's always been stupid about finances, probably doesn't even know she needs to declare assets during proceedings. I could get her to put whatever it is in a joint account, then clean it out. She'd never see it coming. Did you get that? Sophia asked. Every word. There's more. He wants to come see you tomorrow. Play the concerned husband. He actually used the word reconciliation. I smiled, though it felt sharp enough to cut. Tell him visiting hours are from 2 to 4. I'll be ready. After I hung up, I made another call. To Richard Hartley, the lottery lawyer. Mr. Hartley? It's Grace Thompson. I'm ready to claim my prize. But I need to do it quietly for now.
No media, no annoncement. Can we do that?
Absolutely, Mrs. Thompson. We can keep it confidential until you're ready. When would you like to meet? Tomorrow morning, if possible. I'm in the hospital, but I can have my friend bring the documentation. I can come to you, Mrs. Thompson.
10 o'clock?
Perfect. I hung up and looked at the ceiling. Tomorrow, Mark would arrive thinking he was about to con me out of money I didn't even have yet. Instead, he'd be walking into a trap years in the making. You okay? Rachel asked. Better than okay. For the first time in years, I feel like myself again.
Good.
Because tomorrow, Mark Thompson learns what happens when you underestimate Grace Williams. Thompson. I corrected. Grace Thompson. But not for much longer. The morning arrived crisp and clear. Richard Hartley showed up at exactly 10 o'clock with a briefcase and a warm smile. Rachel stood guard at the door while we handled the paperwork. Congratulations, Mrs. Thompson, he said as I signed the final document. The money will be in your account by end of business today. After taxes, you're looking at approximately $92 million. More than enough, I murmured. I've also taken the liberty of arranging the financial advisor and accountant you requested. They'll ensure your husband has no access to these funds. Ex-husband, I corrected. Soon enough. After Hartley left, I prepared for Mark's performance. Rachel helped me into actual clothes instead of a hospital gown, a simple sweater and pants, but better than looking like a patient. Sophia had done her part. Now it was my turn. At exactly 2 o'clock, Mark walked in carrying flowers. Grocery store carnations, the cheap ones. After 8 years of marriage, he didn't even remember I was allergic to carnations. Grace. His voice oozed false concern. You look so much better. I've been so worried. Have you? I kept my voice neutral. Strange way of showing it. He sat down, reaching for my hand. I pulled it away. I know I've been distant, he said, launching into what was clearly a rehearsed speech. The stress of work, the pressure, I handled it badly. But seeing you here, thinking I could lose you, it's made me realize what's really important. And what's that, Mark?
Us.
Our marriage. Our future together. I almost laughed. Our future? You mean the divorce you're filing? He had the audacity to look wounded. That was a mistake. Sophia means nothing to me. She was just a distraction. A midlife crisis. You're my wife, Grace. The love of my life. The love of your life who you called a pathetic loser who couldn't cross a street safely? He flinched but recovered quickly. I was angry. Hurt. You'd been pulling away from me for months. I was working extra shifts to pay for your failed investments. See, that's what I mean. You never believed in my vision. But that's in the past now. Sophia told me something interesting that you mentioned coming into some money? An inheritance, maybe? There it was. The real reason for his visit. Did she? I kept my face blank. I don't recall mentioning that. Maybe you forgot. The head injury and all. But if it's true, if we're about to have a fresh start financially, doesn't that deserve a fresh start for us too? How much debt are we in, Mark? What? The loans. The credit cards. The investments. How much? He shifted uncomfortably. Maybe 40,000. 50 at most. Try 200,000. Including the loans you took out in my name without my permission. His face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Really? So, you didn't forge my signature on 3 separate loan applications? Didn't use my social security number without my consent? Because I have copies of the paperwork right here. I pulled out the folder Rachel had brought. And these photos? You at the Marriott with Jennifer from accounting? The Hilton with that bartender? The romantic weekend in Vegas, while I thought you were at a conference. How did you? And these recordings? I pulled out my phone, playing one of Sophia's recordings. His voice filled the room, bragging about how easy it was to manipulate me, how he'd clean out any windfall I might receive. Mark stood up, his face cycling through emotions, shock, rage, fear. That fucking bitch. She recorded me. She did more than that. She's willing to testify about everything. How you lied about our separation, how you ignored the hospital's calls, how you've been hiding assets in offshore accounts. You can't prove any of that in court. Actually, I can. You see, Mark, while you were busy planning your escape with my money, I was planning something else. Mr. Hartley, I called out. Richard Hartley entered, along with another man in a suit. This is Detective Morrison, Hartley said. He's here about the fraud charges. Detective Morrison? Mark laughed nervously, as in the Morrison whose office I was supposedly at the night of the accident. The detective smiled grimly.
Nori Lashchen.
But interesting that you bring that up. We've been investigating your forged loan applications for several weeks. Mrs. Thompson's accident delayed our plans to arrest you. Arrest? Mark's voice cracked. Fraud, forgery, identity theft. You're looking at 5 to 10 years, Mr. Thompson. Mark turned to me, his mask finally completely off. You set me up. You fucking set me up.
No, Mark.
You set yourself up. I just made sure there were witnesses. What about the money? The windfall? Sophia said. Oh, that. I smiled sweetly. I did win the lottery. $150 million. The night of my accident, I was coming to tell you. We were going to be rich beyond our wildest dreams. The look on his face was worth every moment of pain I'd endured. Pure, unadulterated agony as he realized what he'd thrown away. But here's the beautiful irony. I continued. If you'd been a decent husband, if you'd come to the hospital, if you'd shown even an ounce of compassion, I would have shared it with you. 50-50 in the divorce, at least. But you couldn't even pretend to care, could you? Grace, please. The money's already in my account. Protected by the best lawyers money can buy. You'll get nothing in the divorce except the debt you accumulated in your name. And after the criminal trial, you'll be lucky if anyone ever does business with you again. Detective Morrison stepped forward. Mark Thompson, you're under arrest for fraud and identity theft. You have the right to remain silent. Grace. Mark shouted as Morrison cuffed him. You can't do this. 8 years. We had 8 years together.
No, Mark.
I had 8 years of paying for your schemes, 8 years of being belittled, 8 years of thinking I wasn't enough. You had 8 years of using me. There's a difference. As Morrison let him out, Mark turned one last time. Sophia won't testify. She loves me. Sophia walked in at that moment, having been waiting in the hallway. She looked at Mark with a mixture of pity and disgust. Actually, I've already given my statement to the police, she said quietly. Every recording, every lie, every manipulation. You know what the saddest part is, Mark? Grace would have given you everything. All you had to do was love her. But you're incapable of loving anyone but yourself. Mark's face crumbled. Morrison dragged him out as he shouted threats and pleas in equal measure. The room fell silent. Sophia, Rachel, and I looked at each other. So what now? Sophia asked. Now I heal, I said. I pay off the debts he created, I get the best divorce lawyer in the state, and I start over. What about the money? Rachel asked. What will you do with it? I thought about it. First, I'm going to fully fund the women's shelter in Willow Creek. Create a program for women starting over. Call it the Second Chances Foundation. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. Grace. You were never the other woman, Sophia. You were a victim too. We both were. She hugged me carefully, mindful of my injuries. I'll never forget this. Any of it.
Good.
Remember it when you meet the next charming man who seems too good to be true. She laughed through her tears. Trust me, I'm taking a long break from men. Smart woman. That evening, after everyone had left, I sat in my hospital room watching the sunset. My phone buzzed with messages. News of Mark's arrest had spread quickly. His business partners were distancing themselves. His family was in shock. The life he'd built on lies was crumbling. But I wasn't thinking about Mark anymore. I was thinking about tomorrow. About walking out of this hospital on my own 2 feet. About the house I'd buy with an ocean view. About the places I'd travel to, the education I'd finally complete, the life I'd build on my own terms. Nancy came in for her evening rounds. Heard you had quite the day. You could say that. That handsome husband of yours coming back to visit? I smiled. Ex-husband. And no, he won't be coming back. He's got a new address for the next 5 to 10 years. Good riddance to bad rubbish, I say. Nancy? That first day, when he wouldn't come, when he said those horrible things, did you think I was pathetic? She sat on the edge of my bed, took my hand. Honey, I thought you were the strongest woman I'd ever seen. Lying here broken and still having the grace not to curse his name? That's not pathetic. That's powerful. I don't feel powerful. Power isn't about feeling strong all the time. It's about choosing to stand up even when you're on your knees. You stood up to him today. With help. Everyone needs help sometimes. The fact that you accepted it, that you let others fight beside you, that's not weakness. That's wisdom. After she left, I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I wanted. It rang 3 times before she answered. Mom, Grace. We just got back from the cruise. How are you, sweetheart? Mom, I have so much to tell you. But first, I need you to sit down. As I told my mother everything, the accident, Mark's betrayal, the lottery, the arrest, I felt the last weight lift from my shoulders. Her gasps and exclamations made me smile. When I finished, she was crying. My brave girl. My brave, brilliant girl. Do you need us to come? Not yet. Let me get out of the hospital first.
But Mom?
I'm going to be okay. For the first time in years, I'm really going to be okay. You're more than okay, sweetheart. You're free.
Free.
The word echoed in my mind as we said goodbye. Tomorrow, the news would break about the lottery winner who'd put her criminal husband in jail. The media would have a field day. But tonight, in the quiet of my hospital room with $92 million in my account and a future spread before me like an ocean of possibilities, I was just Grace. Not Mark's wife. Not a victim. Not a lottery winner. Just Grace.
And that was enough.
More than enough. It was everything. What would you do if the person you trusted most betrayed you at your weakest moment? Would you seek revenge or simply walk away with your dignity intact? If this story touched you, please